Hello there, my friends, and welcome back again. I hope you're all doing well today. It's a really beautiful day here at my house. I'd say mid 70s, blue sky, just a few trails, a few contrails up there, but other than that, it's pretty much clear. I know what you're gonna say, chemtrails. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, probably to the point where maybe I'm overthinking, and this is okay because I've finally let go of it. I'm ready to ease back into just doing and being. But I go through these periods, these phases where education is very important. I'm learning about everything I possibly can. Sometimes it's external things. Then there's times when I'm spending a lot of time on internal work, personal work. And then there's times when I just sit on my ass and watch a Netflix series for like 2 days. Because, hey, I'm human, right? We all do what we do when we do it. I no longer really, I'll say, I don't believe in chance or, circumstance, so to speak. But something that's very hard to talk about is synchronicities. And now this term was coined by Carl Jung back in the 1920s, so it's only about 100 years old. And it had many, many names through history. But synchronicity was just the recent installment of this human experience that every human has. And I'm sure that all of you are familiar with what it means, but if not, just to not make anyone feel left out here, a synchronicity is when, for example, you're reading about a butterfly and right then a butterfly lands on your arm. Or you're thinking about a certain person and then they call. These are synchronicities. There are many, and there are vast different ways to go about trying to understand them. For a scientific-minded person, his inquiry would lead him to believe that it's just random chance. Oh, it's bound to happen. And I've been there, and I've believed that at one time too. But I went through a period, maybe, a couple decades back, where when I was younger, I was really interested in these things. And then it just kind of faded from interest and didn't have as many. And I noticed the more you focus, the more they happen, right? So about a decade ago, I got really interested in them again. And for a while, I was having constant synchronicities, which are, by the way, unique from deja vu. And I won't get into deja vu in this one, but I came to the same conclusion that, well, we can't really understand it, but everything I read about it, usually these kind of woo-woo spiritual sites where they'd say, oh, it means you're on the right path, which we'll get to because that ended up being correct, at least in my mind now. It means that you're in tune with yourself and your purpose. And I know for many, you might not believe that we have a purpose here, and that's totally understandable. See, I've never been an atheist myself, but I've always been agnostic. And when I was very young, I was looking at these tattoos on my ankle. I've got several alchemical symbols, like the earth and the sun, and I don't know why I decided to tattoo alchemy symbols on my leg. I mean, I was like 15 years old. I don't know why I was drawn to that, but since I was young, my friends and I, we were skateboarders and into heavy metal, but we went down to the crystal shop called the Crystal Cavern on the corner, and we'd buy incense and crystals, and we'd try to meditate, things like that. I don't know why I was drawn to this, but I was, and for some reason I just kind of lost interest in it. Then come about 10, 12 years ago, I got really back into meditation. I started sitting. I had this circle I'd drawn out in this room, a dedicated area, and I was also practicing Kundalini yoga at that time. This was, say, 2012-ish, during kind of that whole end of the Mayan calendar thing, which I never thought it was going to be the end of the world, but in my mind, from what I'd studied, it was the end of that Baktun, but it was the beginning of a new cycle. And then I started reading about the Kali Yuga and the different ages from different cultures, Hinduism, Buddhism, and realizing there's something to this. And I studied it like crazy. And then at some point, I realized I've learned about everything I can as far as what's speculation and what's not. We'll just have to, just see if anything ever happens. And then I started feeling this shift over the last decade, something that's hard to explain, and hearing the same thing from a lot of other people. But part of my mind's still telling me, well, we're just getting older, right? Think times change, we move forward. Well, over the past, just say week, my inquiries became very serious, and I realized the reason I hadn't received the answers was multifaceted. It's because A, I wasn't ready. There are certain stages you have to climb to understand certain concepts before you can get the message, if you will. And I was always under the impression this message, this whole Satori or, true awakening was something that just happened in fairy tales and books or in delusional people who, wanted to believe something. But it happened to me. And I'm going to, in the future, go into detail on this more. But for now, let's just say that I went from being mostly convinced to 100% convinced that we're all in this as a one organism. There is an anima mundi, a world soul, as well as, many different levels where people have been trying to express this in alchemical artwork, Freemasons and different groups which have formed, as well as different religions in different areas. And let's just say that it doesn't matter which religion it is. So long as your intentions are pure, you have a practice that's based on the area you live and your culture. And they're all the same. It's just a matter of connecting with God in some way. And it's very easy to resist this, especially I was a guy who threw a Bible out of a hotel window when I was like 20 something. I didn't care. I had no respect, no reverence. But this is because I was like, why are people so sure of themselves, It's like, and what I found is people just can't explain how they know, or why they feel the way they feel, or why they took on a specific belief system. And many just do it because they just want something to believe in, and they have no real experience that leads them to that. In other words, they join a religion looking to get that experience, that connection with God. But a person who just has it out of the blue says, oh shit, what now? And the synchronicities can be astounding. So at some point, if you have 2 or 3 coincidences happen in a day, oh, that's interesting. But if you get dozens in an hour, one after another, you can go 2 directions with that. You can either say, okay, the universe is speaking to me, or rather responding to me for asking questions, or number 2, I'm totally crazy, and so are the billions of other people through history who have had the same experience, right? So it's either we're all crazy, or there's something to this bugger, right? So I'm on definitely the latter opinion at this point. My experiences with what one might call the universal mind, the Brahman, and see, there's the Atman, and that's the human part, and then there's the Brahman, and it doesn't matter which scriptures you use, Bible, or Hindu texts, the Vedas, it really all describes the same thing, just different parts of it. That's the fractal nature. That everything is reflected in the whole. This is why when you see a synchronicity, it is a reflection of a larger idea. Just like you are a reflection, like a drop in the sea of the universe, so to speak, right? And this isn't too far-fetched from where we're at in quantum physics, which are starting to see things in the same way. When we talk about dark matter or dark energy, there's a reason you can't see it. It's because it's not the force that is meant to be seen. We live in a very interesting, malleable world that, I know that people can make it sound very woo-woo, like, oh, if people don't think it exists, then it disappears. And you can play all kinds of mind games, an abandoned house in the woods, right? When the last person who dies, who knows that house exists, dies, Does the house disappear because nobody knows it exists and nobody's looking at it? Or if so, what if somebody found a map to that house later in a different, years down the road, and then went and it wasn't there? These are really silly kind of mind games that you kind of wrestle with when you're at certain stages in development. But when you finally get the message, it comes full force. It can be painful. It can be hard to take. And I kind of always thought that to be a little bit, over the top, the way people would describe that experience of just kind of being shown the truth, right? You ask for it. You spend your whole life saying, what's the truth? God, what are you? Is there anything out there? And then all of a sudden one day you get the answer. And it's not anything you could ever describe. It's nothing that comes in words. It's ideas. It's powerful. And it hits you in the heart. And your whole body just goes, holy shit. And the message that you get every time is to just live and trust the process. Not that you have to, toil harder, although sometimes that's part of it. Or not that you're a horrible person or that you've made mistakes, because every mistake you've made turns out to be something you needed to make to get to where you're at. You see, if I'd had the experiences that I've had now 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to process them. I was too young. I was ignorant. And many young people do have these kind of awakening experiences, and they can't process them yet because the fruit has to be ripe before you can harvest it. But the minute you get that message, all it tells you is that that's the beginning. And that's when you're starting to climb the ladder. That's when you are taking the time to ask the questions. And the best way to do that is to just make time. So I'm going back to my meditation practice. I'm going to make it a regular thing every day, because it's not about quieting the mind. It's about listening to the mind. We fill our brains with chatter all the time. It can be so hard to get rid of that. And when we have a long period where it's gone, it's beautiful, and we don't even realize it until it's back. But that's also part of life. You have to listen to that inner voice. What is it telling you? What do you need to do? What's bothering you? And the more we work on these things, the happier we become. So like working out our problems is what life's all about. Just getting things done and continuing to follow whatever path we have. And there's so many characters, so many different characters. The sage, the joker, the king, the queen, and the fool. And there are plenty of all of them. You've got the grandstanding leaders of the world who are playing their part. And if you look back, it's just this representation of what's always happened through history, these hierarchies of nature and these different representations of different sides of ourselves, the greedy side, And when you start to see life as a game, not a game in the sense that it's a joke, but a serious game that you're here to experience for the universe, then those synchronicities will show you the way. I wanted to mention algorithms because I probably will put that in the title. Synchronicity as being unique to the algorithm. And I was glad to read somebody mentioned this in an article I was reading about, if you're on YouTube looking at spiritual content or something all day long, and then you're thinking about it and you go back to YouTube and there's a video, oh my God, it's about spirituality. Well, of course, that's the algorithm, right? And these didn't exist like when I was a kid. There was no targeted ads. So if you saw something, it was probably by chance. Maybe it came on the TV, but all that was pre-programmed and you had no idea. Whereas on the computer, it can target everything specifically to you. Even talking about something in a room, we know that certain apps can pick up what you're saying and say, oh, you're talking about pizza. Holy shit, maybe it's meant to be. It's giving me a pizza ad. Well, so obviously an algorithm is going to be different. So don't let computers and websites fool you into thinking that you're getting some message from the universe. Although, a cautionary note on that would be, there are some people who believe that, and I've considered this, that the whole of building computers and AI, all these systems, was really something that humans were asked to do, or subconsciously asked to do. A guy named John Lilly, you might have heard of him, he was the dolphin guy, and he did a lot of experiences with dolphins and drugs as well. He invented the isolation tank. The military wanted to use it to try to do mind control. He got uncomfortable with that and kind of went off and did his own thing. Very unique character, wore a coonskin cap in his older years, and just, I think he died at like 80 something, but he'd been found face down and almost dead a couple times, and from overdoing it and not having proper procedure in place, and falling in his own bathtub and stuff like that. But he was a fascinating character, and he believed that what he called the solid state entity, which was this universal, a part of the universe, or this, group of beings, whatnot. It sounds pretty wild, right? That wanted humans to design computers, and when you see what we're getting to at this point, it sounds ridiculous, but is it so far-fetched that we're living in something akin to what you see in so many movies, so many ideas, like not just like the Matrix, like we're literally in tanks, but when you start to really consider it deeply, you wonder, well, all these movies, all these books, all these stories were written by people. And these people have their muses, right? Where do these ideas come from? Where do you dream up this crazy shit? Philip K. Dick and just these dark, H.P. Lovecraft, these stories, these primal stories, which are so good. And it seems like you run into this old story at just the right time in your life when you're like, wow, where is that today? Well, it's the same way that Christians believe that the Bible was divinely written, right? And it probably was in some way. In other words, whether it was translated incorrectly, I'm sure people were getting messages they believed to be from God, and they translated it. As far as the Hebrew to English and the Council of Nicaea and the way the Bible was changed and books were removed, that's another story altogether. But religious texts endured time because they meant something to people, because they resonated with them, and the stories resonate with them because the stories are ancient, and everything is ancient, but everything is new. So in the future, I'd like to get much more into this topic. I think I'm going to even kind of start a whole new chapter here. I feel like I'm in kind of phase 3 of my life right now, like as of just a couple days ago. Just, phase 1, childhood, phase 2, adulthood, raising kids, and my kids are becoming teenagers now, and then boom, all of a sudden I'm hitting a difficult part where I'm processing, but at the same time, it's exactly what I needed to move forward and to understand that I've got my path in this world, and I got to follow it, and I got to make it happen, but I can't force it. I've got to let things flow, and I know what I need to do. I just got to figure out exactly how I'm going to do it, and that's what I want for all other humans, and that's part of my mission, is to see that other humans have found a way for themselves to find that confidence and that truth and the ability to sort through the bullshit and feel like they're actually able to live a positive life and have a great experience without worrying and stressing all the time, because anxiety, fear, depression, these are the killers of truth. We're going to have hard times, but we don't have to live in hard times. So work with me and make this world a better place instead of focusing on all the negative crap. And I do realize over the last couple of years, I've fallen into that trap. It's almost like part of my life, a darkness is like had overtaken it. I was getting into politics. I was paying too much attention to external things, and then it all just clicked. Get back to your true self. Carbo, you're being silly. So I'm back to my true self, and I'll continue to do so. I appreciate you being here. I want to say thank you to everyone. I'm going to be updating the podcast soon. The 15-minute free thinking is the podcast. If you haven't seen it, you can find it in somewhere in the description, perhaps, or in my bio there. Thank you to all my patrons. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next time. Peace.